أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم تسري يا سيدي مدد يا سلطان تسري يا سيدي مدد support سبحان الله سلطان الله نبي محمد عليه السلام سبحان الله سلطان الله نبي محمد عليه السلام سبحان الله سلطان الله نبي محمد عليه السلام لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله دستي سيدي من Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Excuse me. Still recovering from our traveling. It's really difficult to avoid wheat and dairy, two things that I'm allergic to on the road. So I've been bad. So I'm paying the price for it. Today's class is a bit of a transition. We're in class number 6 now, so out of 10 classes, we're at the halfway mark. And, you know, if you haven't already noticed, we have been covering the aspects of Hijama, which you probably weren't expecting to come learn, and which you probably don't see in other courses that are offered. And it's an emphasis, of course, on the isnad, the ijaaza, on the connection, spiritual connection that you have, and on the more esoteric, shall we say, aspects of the Hijama field than the actual technical aspects of the Hijama field. And that's with good purpose. We've done that because we want to emphasize the importance that Hijama is just not a technical, you know, academic exercise that you go to school and learn. It's something that you have to have an inherent kind of talent for, a God-given talent for it. And it's critically important to have that connection. Because if you're not guided in these areas, you can get yourself into a serious amount of trouble. And that's what we're going to talk about today, in making this transition from sort of the spiritual aspect of Hijama to the technical aspect of Hijama. And it's something that should be emphasized, and it's a good illustration of how, you know, corrupt and how much the field is just congested with con artists. So it's, I think, a good place to jump off of before we get into the technical aspects of Hijama. So we are talking, of course, about this Ruqya, or Rokia, I guess is the correct pronunciation, Rokia. And this is the area of, you know, black magic and evil eye and spells and, you know, spiritual beings that can bother people, ghosts, basically. So today's class is on Ghostbusters. And we'll discuss that at some length because it's important to understand that the Hijama is separated quite a bit from cupping. Cupping, of course, has been, you know, widely accepted now, especially with Michael Phelps, yeah. He was an Olympian swimmer. Has won, like, you know, huge amounts of gold medals. And he's come out and he's had his red marks that came from the cupping that he did. And those red marks have made cupping explode in popularity. Because if he does it, then of course it must, you know, be something useful when other people are running towards it now. Not only people that are practicing it and offering it, as a kind of an adjunct to their professional practices, but also to athletes and dancers and all sorts of people that are looking for the benefits that it might provide as far as injury is concerned. And the problem is they're not doing it properly. They would get a lot more benefit from it if they did it properly. But, people are mixing their imaginations in with what is proper. And they're getting some benefit, of course, because it does help pain management to put cups on the skin and to create the red mark and kind of revitalize the muscle. But without removing the dead blood, it can actually be quite a danger. And the fortunate thing is that the dangers are pretty, few and far between. They don't manifest themselves, and you can't really, determine what those dangers are because they, happen over such a large period of time. Similar to some of the benefits that occur from the actual hijama itself, it can happen over 60 days or more, 90 days sometimes. You'll see actual benefit coming from one hijama session. So it takes time for the body to respond oftentimes to the hijama. Other times you'll see, very quick results, especially with pain management and things of that nature. But with, some chronic illnesses and diseases, you won't see, really any improvement on the person until 45, 60, 90 days after the actual session. In a similar manner, the problems that can occur from doing hijama improperly can happen over a 60, 90-day period of time as well. So it's not really recorded very well or understood very well what difficulties can come from doing hijama in an improper way. So when you're extracting and pulling the blood, you're extracting literally just the dead blood cells, unless you're using these pumping machines, which, of course, pull a lot of useful blood out of the body, which is a very bad thing to do. We'll get into that more in the next, a few classes, which is covering the technical aspects of it. But I just wanted to touch upon the fact that there's things that need to be understood and need to be, done from a hijama standpoint that is not being understood and incorporated into cupping practices. And if the people who are performing cupping, oftentimes they have a better kind of spirit about them and a better understanding of energy work, and they tend to, I think, be people that are probably more suited or better suited for the hijama practice than a lot of the people, coming to it today from the Islamic side. And I can go into quite a bit of detail as to why that might be the case right now, but predominantly it's because Muslims have thrown their religion behind their back and they're really not following it very much. And the concept of spirituality is more outside of Islam today than it is inside, with mindfulness and meditation and the different esoteric fields that people are pursuing right now. So if we kind of combine the benefits that practitioners of cupping have already with the technical and spiritual requirements of hijama, I mean, you'll really have something. So we're hoping that this spreads into the cupping field and people who are using it as, adjunct to their professions like acupuncture and chiropractic work and massage therapy. Sports medicine as well is a big one now, that they, take the time and listen to this and understand the aspects of hijama, which are so critically important to follow. And if they followed those, then it would be finding that they have much, much better results with their cupping. So today's class, the Ghostbuster class, which we're calling it, is trying to make people understand that once you take up this banner of hijama practitioner, you start getting people coming to you for all sorts of ailments and disease and spiritual problems that are looking for solutions and help in those fields, and they believe because you're somebody who's offering hijama that you're qualified and capable of handling those things. And that's why this industry, and I hate to call it an industry, but this field or this religious practice, I think is probably a better way of describing it, is so critically important to have that connection and that guidance and to have an authentic source of information and a teacher who you can rely upon 100% for accurate information, because everybody is making up so many different things right now, not only in the religious practice of hijama itself, where they're making all sorts of false claims and they, take information off the internet and decide that they're going to, just create out of their fantasy, something that makes patients feel good or makes them, believe what they're doing is legitimate. The area of Ruqya is an area that a lot of people are seeking help with because it's actually growing like crazy. The demonic, again, I don't know, you call it field or industry or, the influences, I think is, again, the better term, is just so prevalent today. If you turn on the television, there's all these shows. I think there's, a show now called Lucifer that, is just about the devil. And the horror films and the emphasis and the focus on demonic activities is just like off the charts right now. And you're seeing more and more people, advertising, even like New York Times articles and stuff like that, talking about the increased demand for like, exorcisms and that kind of thing in the Catholic Church and other areas. So it's across the field that it's kind of, rearing its ugly head, and it's really become something that's an enormous industry or enormous influence on the populations. And, people are kind of running towards it, and, there's different reasons for that. But, the real true, demonic pursuits, they do empower people. We talked about this a little bit before, this concept of selling your soul to the devil in order to either become a rock star or to, start offering, psychic, services to make money from this kind of demonic, association that you have that gives you a little bit of insight into people's futures and whatnot. It's easily accessed because it's, it's just something that you have to declare, and it can happen very quickly, like overnight. So, as opposed to this other path that we're on that is, could take years and years and years before your, ego is put down to the point where you can open up that connection that you have with a true teacher and truly be able to be a conduit of good health and healing and be able to help people, not from yourself, but from this source of information that you can kind of connect to. So it's a completely different, situation from just putting cups on people and extracting dead blood. When you get into this industry, and people should have great humility and think carefully before they enter into this industry or religious practice. Again, I don't like to say industry. But it's not something that you should be running towards. Just like, leadership positions, of a country or something like that. It's not something that you should want for yourself. If people are demanding that your, leadership is necessary and they see you as a good, pious person with good character and asking you to do it, it becomes a responsibility to do it. but it's not something you should campaign to do. So these, democratic campaigns where everybody's spending months and months and months and millions of dollars trying to convince the world that they're the best candidate is completely upside down from what true leadership should be, doing. And even in America, it used to be incredibly bad manners to put yourself forward as a, potential candidate, unless people were demanding it and insisting on it. So a lot of it was fake and, just positioning yourself to make people believe that you were actually qualified for these things. But, it's the best protection, because when you take upon these responsibilities of an entire nation on your head, there's huge consequences, for having falsely assumed those positions. And the same is true with Hijama. If it's something that you're running after because you think you can gain the respect of the community or because you can make a little extra money, and you see these elaborate clinics now on, the internet that have these, beautiful, waiting room areas, and they have these beautiful, practitioner tables, and they're offering, all these different products and stuff, and they really, put together a nice presentation when you enter the place, and the marketing and the advertising that they do. It's a business. I mean, and you should understand when you walk into one of these places that if it is geared towards business, it's a business, and their judgment and their goals and their objectives are business oriented. You walk into a space which is dedicated to just, hijama and cupping, and you see these elaborate, facilities, you must know that the economic, pressures of that are intense, and people are looking for new marketing opportunities to pay for these things. So you get into this trap of having to pay your rent every month, and you start doing things that you otherwise wouldn't do. So if you're truly getting into this field to help people, especially in the area of Rukia, I don't know actually the correct pronunciation of that, but either one will do. Excuse me. This field of helping people with demonic possession, and this field of helping people with spells and with magic, and all of which is very real. I mean, there's no question about that. And if you go to the webpage, to this class number 6, and look at some of the complimentary information, additional reading, and additional related videos, you'll see very clearly some examples of, how real this actually is. There's one video from our Sheikh Muhammad, who's dealing with a case at his dargah. It's where people from all over the world come to visit him, and clearly somebody's having, trouble, and you could see like this demonic possession coming over him. And there's no fanfare, and there's no, take him to my office and make sure you, charge him $50 for the service, and, there's no preparation. It's dealing with him without any expectation of reward, because his reward is to help people, and his reward is to serve God. His reward is not in trying to make a little extra money. And probably the one place on earth that I've ever seen that operates like this, that nobody's expected to pay anything, and the place completely runs on donations only. Excuse me. Having a tough time this morning. But it's because it happens naturally. People see that this work is being done, and they want to do something to assist it and help it, because they're sincere themselves. So it works, and people deserve the help, so the money comes. If the money doesn't come, you have to ask yourself the question, is this really something that I'm supposed to be doing? Or you should ask the question, is this something that the population deserves and, is something that I should be providing? Because oftentimes, the population might not deserve the assistance or help, and they're, just in a state of affairs where they have to, fall down and kind of learn for themselves that these problems are not coming with a solution for a reason. And if that's the case, then there's nothing you can do about it. But in a perfect system, the help comes, and then the money comes to support that because people see that it's something that's being done unselfishly. And this is the true system of especially something to do with the religious practice, that it is not a 501c3, and it's not, a religious organization with donation buttons all over their front page asking and begging for money all the time. The money is mentioned only in the context of maybe teaching somebody that, charity is an important aspect of religion, and it helps to protect you and helps to, cleanse your sins and that kind of thing. And in that context, it might be discussed, but otherwise money is never discussed. And if it's not coming, it's not coming for a reason. So this is the true, manner that you should be looking for when you're looking for somebody to assist you in these areas that are so critically important in making your health better and making your spiritual nature better and making your mental nature better. They're all intertwined, of course, and they all, require very specific anecdotes for each, condition. And if you're somebody who is trying to make money, you're going to drift off of what is correct in order to make more money. So people using these, pumping, machines now and the plastic cups are doing it because the market's demanding it, and they want to have fresh cups on them, of course, and it's easier to use these things. You're not, having a problem with fire. And even, some people are pumping incredibly hard on people's hair so they don't have to shave their hair before they actually do the cupping on the head. All of this is attractive to the customer, but it's not what's best for the person. And if you're truly dedicated to doing what's best for the person, you're not going to be able to be focused on the money, because you're not going to be able to make a living at this from the aspect of, doing it for religious purposes. So we should have a divide in this industry. We should have people, and again, industry is not the word I like to use, but until I come up with something better, that, you offer either cupping services, which are one category, you offer hijama services. Those people offering hijama services are being put into positions of authority that are then being asked to perform all sorts of things on a level that they're so completely unprepared to deal with. And if you think that it's so easy for you just to claim from, watching a couple videos, and it's so easy to put the cups on somebody and to remove them and to set up a business surrounding this field, again, industry, religious practice, you're sorely mistaken that it's not that simple. What people come to you with are incredibly real problems, and those problems have a huge range that, span from, actual demonic possession to magic and spells that have been put on people, and energy that is just, at a level that is going to effectuate you if you don't handle it properly. So not only is an improper hijama practitioner capable of harming people by putting his own negative energy onto people, but the people who come to you who are, suffering all sorts of, spiritual problems, some real, some imagined, but nonetheless, their energy that they can harm you with is a huge concern. And if you get involved in this industry, you're absolutely, guaranteed to encounter a lot of this, especially if you're offering just hijama practices. And it is so ripe for conning people and for making all sorts of false claims. And it's extremely difficult to differentiate between these con artists and these people who can truly help you. There are absolutely people out there who can truly help you in these areas. Even the Catholic religion, through exorcism, which is kind of widely accepted in the West as being real. I mean, there's movies made about it, and there's actual priests who, specialize in this demonic possession. And they go and they do these exorcisms to remove the evil spirits out of people's bodies, the demonic possessions. And it's very real. But even the Catholic faith is doing things today which are completely counterproductive to removing these, evil spirits out of people's beings. And it actually contributes to the evil, taking hold in somebody's body. So it's, when you understand this and you see people doing things which are actually have a reverse effect on the individuals that they're trying to help. And they're sincere and they're trying to do it, but they're utilizing methodologies which are counterproductive and actually strengthen the demonic possessions. But you're dealing with deceptive, tricky, beings that will actually make you think that you're, succeeding and give you the notion that you have accomplished something when in fact you have not. And, again, take a look at some of the videos that you see and understand this point, very, very clearly in this transition from the spiritual aspects of hijama to the practical aspects, that without a source of authentic knowledge, without a guide, without somebody that you are sure understands these things, you are absolutely going to go off track. There's no question about it. And this, more than anything, is what is critically important in the ijaaza process and the isnad. To know that you have somebody that goes back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is an authentic source, of course. And without that authentic source, you can't be sure if, what is being conveyed to these people to help them is actually truly something that can help them. I never put myself or think of myself that I am the person who's helping this person who's coming for this assistance in this area. And people come to us all the time asking us for help and, asking us if you, know how to perform this, or you know how to do this, or you can take care of this, spiritual problem or that spiritual problem, or, I'm not, being successful in my job. Can you help me, with that? And it becomes a mishmash of different requests that people are asking you. I can't get married. Can you help me get married? There seems to be like this demonic possession on me that's keeping me from being successful. Can you remove that from me? And these people are vulnerable in a position that makes them completely, open to being conned and being cheated. And I'm telling you that across the board, there's people that are cheating these people left and right. Similar to the psychic, industry, where people are coming and spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on, psychic hotlines and psychic counseling. And these people are just cheating them. And, you know, I think the standard that you should probably understand more than anything is when you go to somebody for this kind of help, if money is the focus, then you have got a problem. A true person who can help you in these areas understands first and foremost that it is his duty as a servant to help, and it is not expected to be rewarded. But in a perfect system, if you go to, you know, ask one of these truly authorized people for help, they should be open and willing to give it to you, but, you know, you should at some point in the future give something in return, even if it's not directly to the person who helped you, but you should give a charity in another direction, if not directly to the person who's assisting you. You should give that charity without expectation, and that charity actually works to empower the process that happened. So this is true in healing. The healing process is actually fortified by the charity that is given. So when you're insisting on payment for these services, the person paying you it's, you know, given kind of credit and power that he's giving you a charity. But it's a charity that you're demanding, and it lacks the power and the protection that a real charity gives. So when it's, you know, given properly, it ups the scale of protection, and it ups the scale of benefit that you get from it. When you insist on payment in advance, you're demanding that payment, and you're changing the balance of that property. And, you know, while the person who's giving it to you might, you know, get the benefit from it. So people now are spending huge amounts of money to go see a doctor, and that, you know, fee for the doctor is acting as a protection for you, and actually is the basis of the healing that you receive from going to the doctor. That what the doctor gave you is, you know, just bunk and not really beneficial for you, but the actual act of giving the money was the act that actually made the healing come to you. So this is an area that will be covered in some of the teachings and writings on a natural healing book that will provide for you as part of the course. And the woman who did it, who we call Zero, is her nickname. And before she passed away recently, I think she redid this book, and I'm looking for the new revised version of the book. But there's also some videos that, you know, talk to you about some of the natural healing techniques and whatnot that are offered, which are incredibly important. And that's another aspect of, you know, the hijama that comes with this kind of territory, that people come to you and they're looking for advice in so many other fields, like nutrition and, you know, natural health. And the more you understand about these things, the better off you're going to be in being able to assist people. But again, it has to come from a knowledge base of authenticity. It has to come from, you know, true and factual sources, not just your imagination. So it's critically important to have that authorization. And while we're making this transition from the spiritual into the technical aspects of Hijama, I want to emphasize that over and over and over again. So when you start this practice, you're going to get people coming to you for this Rokia, and they're going to be asking you all sorts of things, and you can tell them pretty much anything, and if you tell them and speak with authority, they'll believe you. And you can charge them huge amounts of money because they're desperate, and they're fearful, and they have justifiable concerns because, you know, much of this is real. Some of it is imagined, but, you know, the imagination can be as difficult for people as what reality is when they firmly believe it. So you had people in an extremely vulnerable situation, and if you're a con artist or somebody who is not authorized to be doing this, it's going to come back on you. The evil spirits that, you know, walk through your front door because they're, you know, tailing behind the person who's coming to see you for help can be transferred onto you very easily if you're not protected and you don't know how to handle these things. You're eventually going to get yourself into a huge amount of trouble. And the same is true with a lot of the, dabbling or entertaining this demonic, field, and playing around with, Ouija boards and playing around with different, spells and magic, and, just even watching videos and doing it from less of a standpoint of educating yourself and more of it just entertaining you. And when you start letting this stuff in, it can become a huge problem for you. So you'll get people that come to you for help, and the help is actually quite easy. It's not something that you should be charging for, certainly not. And it is something that can be handled quite, easily. In the video of our, teacher handling a situation where somebody is clearly, having a demonic possession, the ease with which he handles the situation is very matter of fact, and he, tells the people that are standing next to this person to recite Ayat al-Kursi, which is a chapter in the Quran, or an ayat is a verse in the Quran that they recite 7 times over this person. You can see it just like lifting off of him. And it's very matter of fact, and he handles it and he walks away. He's not waiting, to speak to the person. He's not waiting for credit. He's not waiting for adulation. It's incredibly humble, and he just goes about his business and does what he does. And this is the sign of a true, person who is dedicated to helping. And a person who's not having any expectation of reward or even acknowledgement that what he did, he's not even asking and waiting around for thanks, because he gets all his thanks from the Creator, from God. So if you're, involving yourself in these things and you don't have that intention and you don't have that support from these people who truly understand and know these things, then, you just should find some other way of, satisfying your ego and doing something else with your time and your efforts. Because Hijama is definitely not it. So the field, the religious practice is just littered with people that are coming forward now and making all sorts of claims. And pretty much the key is the money. If you go to somebody and, they're asking for money, it should be a very modest amount. And I don't fault anybody who's asking for money right now, because the concept of, charitable donations and giving people money is just kind of evaporated, and people will take, what you have to offer to them, and they don't give you anything in return, and you can't continue. I mean, there's supplies and costs associated with this. It's not like the ruqyah where you're just offering advice or giving, a small, basically prescription for what ails them. It's something that does have an associated cost with it, so you do have to cover your costs. So I have tried it both ways, and we weren't very successful in trying to do it for free, I have to admit. But it's the intention. The person who is trying to do it for the sake of, the Creator is, I think, going to be apparent to those who are, paying attention, as opposed to the people who are trying to create an atmosphere of success and trying to create a clinic that is, beautiful and that obviously has huge amounts of, unnecessary expenses associated with the services that they're offering simply as a marketing tool to bring in more patients. So if you find somebody who's humble, who does this on a very limited scale, who is not asking for a lot, those are probably the indications that you're getting the correct person. But when you have somebody who's making a practice out of it, and setting up shop and doing marketing and advertising, and a certain amount of that is necessary if you're trying to convey the correct teachings and stuff. I advertise these courses, and I'm charging the $100 for people to come and take these courses. Part of that, a lot of that really is weeding people out, because our objective is to try to find people that are qualified to train for free. And I'm happy to train people for free as soon as we identify who deserves that free teaching. But, the associated cost with, putting together these courses, of course, is necessary too, to cover those. So we do charge for that, but I think, people see that it's an incredibly modest charge compared to the $1,000 that most people are charging for these similar courses, which are, basically people's imagination. So we'll be adding quite a bit. I really wasn't going to be talking about this subject of, Ghostbusters today, because I had something else in mind. So it'll take me a bit to put together the web page with additional information on it. So if that's not complete by the time the actual the class is up and running, then just come back and look at that again, because there'll probably be more information added over the next day or two. So I don't. It's again, this subject could fill books and books and books of knowledge, but the main emphasis again is to find somebody who knows somebody who really does know. And how you go about that and how you find that is often associated with the amount of money and the intention of the person who is offering those services. So keep vigilant and look out for those people who are humble and those people who are not trying to make a business out of this. And then reward them and support these people too, because they're valuable commodities that need to have support. And the support only comes from the creator. It doesn't come from anybody else. But there's a synergy to this in a system that does operate and work, and when it's working properly, it's all mixed together. So I will offer you some recommendations on the sources that you can rely upon, and you can listen to me or not listen to me. It's up to you. The new people associated with this and who don't really even know me very well yet have no reason to believe what I'm saying is absolutely correct, or that these sources necessarily are authentic. We offer the isnad, the chain back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you can see at the bottom of the page now that is contained on every single class for a reason, to let people see that that is something that's firm. Unless you research it and go back and check the validity of each one of those contacts, though, you can't be absolutely certain that what I'm offering you is correct. I would encourage you to do that, because there are, people out there that are claiming that they have the isnad back, and there's actually a break in the chain that's not authentic. So, not an easy task to verify these things. But again, if you look to the intention of the person, the humility of the person, if you look to the emphasis on whether they're trying to make a reputation for themselves or to make money off of this, and how willing they are not to accept money, then you're probably going to be much safer in dealing with that person than other people. Um, at the same time, I will tell people it's not wrong to charge for these services in today's climate. You have people that just are ignorant and they don't understand, and if you don't ask them for upfront payment, basically they're going to cheat you. And if you continue to get cheated, you're not going to be able to continue. You could say that, those services then are not, the population is not deserving those services if they're not respecting them. And there's a lot of truth in that. So maybe they shouldn't go forward, and maybe you shouldn't charge up front. And if they're not respecting them and giving you something on the tail end after the service is provided, then it's going to die out, and society doesn't deserve that. So it's like the leadership that we get with the countries. We get the leaders that we deserve, and right now we have two doozies of leaders that it's hard to decide which one's worse. But it's the leadership that we deserve in this country. So until it cycles back around and we deserve better, things aren't going to change. So it's similar with these services. True healing and true assistance in these spiritual matters is coming to a society and coming to people who deserve it. And if they don't deserve it, then it kind of dies out over time, and it cycles back, and people start suffering incredible hardship, and they're then looking for solutions and ways to correct that, and then they come back to an understanding which is healthy, and then they start respecting it again, and it takes hold, and so it's very much a cycle. And if you get stuck on the low side of that cycle, then it just, nothing you can do about it. We're on the low side of that cycle now, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. People like, the marketing, and they like the pandering, and they like the special treatment, and they like people who, stroke their egos and give them the information and the attention that they want, and the anecdotes that they want. They want what's easy. They don't necessarily want what's effective. So when you have somebody come into your office and you tell them you have to shave your hair to, do the cupping on the necessary point on the back of the head, of course you're going to get, huge amounts of objections. People's hair is, just the cherished aspect of their being, especially women, but men as well. They're just don't touch my hair. If that hair is more important than your health, then so be it. And these next few classes will get into the importance of why the cupping with the fire and with the natural suction is so important. But it's just an example that, it's so easy to offer people something that they think is better, which on the surface looks much better. The pumping on top of the hair, it requires so much pumping that it becomes damaging. And I mentioned earlier, but I didn't get into any detail, that when you extract that dead blood to the top of the skin, and you don't remove it, you're causing many, many problems that can occur, 60, 90 days down the line. And you would never associate them with the actual hijama session, so you wouldn't say that the harm was done by the hijama, when in fact it was. So, just think about the logic of it, that you're extracting blood, whether you believe in the dead blood theory or not. It is dead blood that's being extracted. Unless you're using these pumps, and then you're taking out good blood, which is bad and dangerous as well. But in pulling the dead blood to the surface of the skin on that, hickey that occurs from the suction, if you just leave it there stagnant, where is that dead blood going to migrate to? It's going to migrate and collect in an area near, an organ, or it's going to collect near one of the muscles, or, it'll dissipate back into the body. Any of those outcomes is extremely unfavorable. So what's the point of pulling, the benefit of pulling that dead blood to the surface of the skin without removing it? And this is where the massage therapist and the different people who are selling these services, get into this, false, practice of extracting these, hickeys on people and then not doing anything with it. And while massage, cupping might have some benefits in activating the skin, at the point where you start getting a red mark on the skin is the point where you should stop. So if you're moving the cup, before that occurs, it probably has some benefit in a massage technique. But if you leave the cup on for more than, 20, 30 seconds, you're immediately starting this process of extracting the dead blood cells. And that's a spiritual process. It is not just a physical process of the suction. And, I can get into the spiritual aspects of this and you wouldn't even believe it. But there are angels that are, tasked with the responsibility of assisting in all sorts of things. Pregnancy being one of the big ones is why you should not, really have a man touching a woman who is pregnant, and because it upsets the spiritual component and the activity that the angels are embarking on to make that incredibly miraculous process work. And you talk to most women, and they can tell you when the life is breathed into the fetus at about 4 months. That quickening, that very clear, sign that something different has happened in the 4-month period. That's when, the angels really start their task and their job of formulating and helping, this process. And of course, it's, a creation of, God's doing. It's not the angels, but the angels are tasked with it, just like saints are tasked with certain things. It's not their power, their ability that's making this happen. It's the actual, permission that's coming from the Creator that allows them to do these things. But they're given this assignment to do these things. And part of the, pregnancy process is very much, involving the assistance of these angels that come and are specifically tasked with that responsibility. So similar with Hijama, there's a, task of angels coming and actually helping to clean the capillaries and remove the dead blood cells. And Hijama, more than anything, is a cleansing process. And that's why it's associated so much with this seer, they call it, the black magic and the spells and the different demonic possessions and whatnot. Because not only is it cleaning you physically from these dead blood cells, but it's cleaning you spiritually as well. And that should not be discounted, and it's probably rarely discussed or understood very well. But there is a process by which, people with demonic possession can benefit from the Hijama because of the spiritual component of the cleansing that happens with the Hijama. Which is why this is a religious practice, and it needs to be performed by people who are religiously trained and understand these things. And most people claiming to be offering Hijama today do not understand these things. They don't have any concept or understanding of them at all. And in many cases, the people offering cupping today, which is, just everything's upside down, understand it better. So it's my hope that the cupping people will take hold of the Hijama benefits and incorporate those into their practice. And it's my hope that the Hijama people today take note of the spiritual acumen of the people in the alternative health fields that, have a better understanding of these things than most, quote unquote Muslims do. So, I see the time is about 55 right now. So we go over 55, we run into trouble with the intro and the end. So I'll quit now. But it's a big topic, and hopefully you'll find lots of information on the webpage about it. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Shukran. See you next class. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.